All right. So I don't know anything. I'm not I'm totally coming in totally ignorant here. Got to admit. But I got to ask you, why is NASCAR better than Formula One?
Well, it just depends on who you ask. NASCAR's always been an American sport. I mean, it started back with bootlegging back in the day, and it's evolved a little bit over the years. And the cars are different. The technology's come a long way, but I think it's all about the culture, right? It's American culture. You've got hardworking people showing up to the races, wanting to enjoy a race. Formula One's become very, very expensive. It's a worldwide sport. There's literally hundreds of millions of dollars involved in operating some of these teams, and NASCAR's not quite like that. So depends on your taste. It's like wine and beer. Some people like wine, some people like beer, and NASCAR will probably be your beer, and Formula One will probably be your wine.
That's fair. What's your favorite thing about the energy of a NASCAR race? What do you love about the race itself? Not you in it, but the people all around it.
Well, it's always great to see people kind of coming around a sporting event. They forget about all their stresses in life, and they're just out there and enjoying the weekend, cheering on their favorite driver. And that's the sort of stuff that brings America together, as compared to some of the stuff now that tears us apart. We need more things that bring us together, because right now with our political climate, God knows that there's so many people that are divided, and we've got a lot of problems in our country that we need to address and we need to fix, and we've got to stop fighting each other to get there.
My segue out of NASCAR talk is that NASCAR is committing to net zero carbon emissions by 2035. First of all, how's that possible? But second of all, why? What's up with that?
Well,
why do it?
I'm not sure. I've my last race was 2019, and I've really focused a lot on the political side of things since then. It'd be interesting to see how they're going to do it. I don't have any. I don't think the cars are going to go electric. I know there's been some conversation about that, but I just don't think that that's realistic. And it reminds me a little bit about some of these EV mandates that everybody's talking about. A lot of that is pie in the sky. Just our electric grid is nowhere near being able to handle some of these electric mandates and whatnot. But at the end of the day, if it's what the fans want, NASCAR will do it. If it's not what the fans want, NASCAR won't do it. So we'll have to see what happens. I mean, 2030, 2035 is a little ways away, and if the fans don't want it, they're going to certainly speak up and make their voices heard.
Yeah, I hope that's true. I hope the NASCAR family, whoever owns it now, isn't willing to drive it into the ground, even if the fans don't like it. Tell me about Maine. Maine is an interesting and unique, that Nebraska situation with this presidential election in your district. Explain to us how this works, because it could literally come down to your district and the one in Nebraska to determine the president. That is within the realm of possibility.
Absolutely, and there's some predictions that are saying that it literally could come down to one electoral vote, and if that's the case, Maine's 2nd District will have a huge say in who wins the election. Maine splits up their electoral vote, so District 2, which is where I'm running for Congress, if whoever wins it will get one vote. CD1, which is the southern part of the state, a little bit, quite a bit more liberal, has one electoral vote, and then whoever wins statewide gets two. So there's a lot of work that we're doing in Maine's 2nd District to obviously ensure that President Trump's victorious. He won it in 2016 and 2020. But it's, frankly, it's a little closer than we'd like right now. So that's why we're having everybody, getting involved, and people are getting involved in this election that I never would have thought would have ever gotten involved in politics. And that's sort of what's going on in our country right now, where we have people that are just disappointed in the politicians. They're disappointed, obviously, in this administration, but they're even disappointed in, the down ballot races. People who have run for Congress, like my opponent, Jared Golden, in 2018, and talked a big game and said he was going to do all kinds of things when he ran for Congress in the district, but then he went to D.C. and D.C. changed him. And that's the problem we're seeing around the country. We're seeing D.C. change a lot of people, And that's unfortunate. That's not what the Founding Fathers wanted for our country. They didn't want career politicians. They didn't want people who said one thing and did another. They wanted statesmen. They wanted people who were going to do what was right. And that's what we're fighting for in this election.
Maine, just like every other state, where you get the cities that are blue and the country that's red. But tell us the difference between northern Maine, which is where you would represent, and southern Maine, and why is there such a drastic difference to the point where Biden won by 9 points statewide?
Yeah. So I come from a farming and logging family in northern Maine. For anybody that knows geography, it's basically the tip of Maine, Aroostook County, St. John Valley. A lot of French Canadians up there, hardworking people who worked in the woods, worked with their hands. And that area is tending to lean conservative. It surprisingly used to be Democrat back in the Kennedy days, back when unions and the mills and all that stuff. But the mills have closed and the manufacturing has moved away. And people are really, really frustrated and disappointed because they feel like the government and everybody's left them behind, these working class areas, these rural areas. And that's what we have in a lot of parts in my district where I'm running for Congress. As you move closer south, you've got Portland, which obviously has become very liberal. You have people who have moved away from different parts of New England that have come up here, and a lot of them may have brought their ideology and politics with them. So that's an area that's very tough for Republicans, which is the 1st District. Shelley Pingree represents that area. And unfortunately, it used to be Biden, but Kamala's going to win that area probably by over 10 points. And that just shows you that the difference right now in America between the rural areas and the cities. And unfortunately, this is not a attack. I've got friends that live down there, but it's very easy when you live in the city to forget what it's like to have to make a living in small town America, especially when, like I mentioned, these mills and these manufacturing and the jobs have moved away and the opportunities have moved away, and you don't have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. But these people who stayed in rural America have to deal with it, and that's what we've got to focus on. We've got to focus on separating the difference between that rural America and the big cities, because that America was founded on the hard work of the farmers and loggers and fishermen, and we have to get back to that.
When people talk about manufacturing leaving, I don't think people think about Maine first and foremost. When did the mills and manufacturing in Maine leave? When was that big exodus, and where did it go to?
Well, Maine used to have a lot of paper mills, used to have shoe factories. We used to have, all kinds of different things back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. A lot of the lumber that you see, for home building and probably at some point came from Maine. I mean, Maine, I like to say Maine and my grandfather and my great-grandfather, those men and in some cases women who worked in the woods, they built America, and that wood came from Maine. You've got a huge farming population up here, but unfortunately that's dwindled over the past 20, 30, 40 years because of some trade issues that we've had to deal with. So it's tough. I keep going back to it, and I'm not a negative person, but it's tough for these people because they've seen their family farms close. They've seen paper mills that used to be, there used to be tons of them up here. There's only 2 in Maine, and they're wondering, can we get back to it? And that's the question they're asking me on the campaign trail. And I say, look, we may not get back to the way it was in the 70s and 80s, but we can surely work towards lowering energy costs, lowering some of the regulations that stop business development. Obviously, there's some communities that have been decimated from the fentanyl crisis and the open border. And even some people that used to be strong and healthy are now dealing with the consequences and realities of addiction because of the lack of leadership from some of our politicians and those who voted against securing the border, like my opponent, Jared Golden. They have a lot to answer for, but I'm telling you, if we work together and we win this election, I really think we can make some progress in steering our country back on the right track.